Hello there, and welcome to another Comic Geek video. Handheld gaming. So much fun. The idea to be able to play a game, pick it up, take it with you wherever you go, and continue it when you're on the subway, the bus, wherever you happen to be going. Handheld gaming has always had a special place in my heart. I grew up on it. All the way back in the early 2000s, Nintendo released the original DS. And Sony decided to step into the ring with Nintendo and try their hand at their own portable gaming console. This was called the PSP. Unfortunately, I never had my hands on a PSP. I always grew up on Nintendo platforms. I played the DS. It's easy to see why the DS was so successful, with the dual screens and the great game selection as well as the affordable price. Just about everyone had a DS, whether it was the original, the Lite, the DSi, or the XL model. I personally had the green DSi. Well, despite it not being the only game console in the market, it dominated almost completely the handheld market. The only competitor that was, I'd say, roughly equal was Sony's PSP. Now, previously, no one had dared, well, few people have dared, to enter the ring with Nintendo in the handheld market. It was mostly, almost completely, dominated by Nintendo with their Game Boy and Game Boy Advanced and Game Boy SP and the entire Game Boy lifespan. The PSP was the first to be able to hold solid ground against Nintendo, and they did pretty well. Come 2012, both companies wanted to release new handhelds. Nintendo's answer to that was the 3DS. The 3DS was pretty much an upgraded model of the DSi, with the new circle pad, as well as the 3D feature, and the ability to play DS games. It was hard for Sony to compete with that. It was affordable, downgradable, and I'd say legendary. So what was Sony's answer, Sony's rival to the 3DS? That was the PS Vita. This is the PS Vita 2000. And although it didn't do nearly as well as the 3DS, the Vita was still really good. The touchpad on the back was really nice. Not a whole lot of games used it, but it was an extra gimmick to throw in there, as well as a couple of cameras on the front and back for you to use. The touchscreen dual analog sticks both made something extra that the 3DS didn't do up until, I believe, 2017 when the new Nintendo 3DS was released. So the PS Vita was a nice system and had some nice gimmicks that would have helped it sell. So what killed it? One of the first killers of the PS Vita was with the release of the 1000 model, the initial PS Vita model. The initial PS Vita used a proprietary charger port, which means no commonly found charger could be used to charge the Vita. You had to use something unique, which also meant you had to carry around extra cords. The 1000 model also had no internal memory. which meant you had to use their memory cards. Which brings me to their third killer of the console, the proprietary and expensive memory cards. 8 gigabytes doesn't do very much for a game, but I spent $30 on this. Now, I do not know how much it was when it launched, but the memory cards were still expensive when they launched. The 64 gigabyte memory card, which only launched in Japan, launched for about at least $100 American money. So that is a major killer of this console. Now, some of these problems were fixed with the next model. The PS Vita 2000, or as some call it, the PS Vita Slim, solved several problems that the original model had. For example, the proprietary charger port and charger cord was replaced by a mini USB, and many devices used the mini USB at the time, as well as adding some internal storage. Not much, 1 gigabyte of internal storage actually, and it doesn't do a whole lot. But that still meant if you bought a memory card, you'd have 9 gigabytes in total, if you bought, assuming you bought the 8, but I have the 8 right here. Now, the Vita titles didn't kill the system. In fact, it had some really good titles, like Uncharted Golden Abyss, Little Big Planet Vita, and Killzone Mercenaries. Unlike their competitor, however, you could not put games from the previous handheld generation, being the PSP, into the Vita and play it. It was not backwards compatible in that way. Which, although it doesn't play the UMD PSP games, it did offer a form of backwards compatibility in the form of digital purchase. You could purchase PSP games. Right here I have GTA Liberty City Stories, which was a PSP title. It also allowed you to purchase PS1 games, as well as a few PS2 games. This was nice. Very few companies, actually no, a lot of companies do it, but Sony doesn't tend to do it very often. And the PS1 and PS2 were legendary. Now, one thing that the PS Vita 2000 model doesn't have that the initial 1000 model did was a nice OLED display. Unfortunately, the PS Vita 2000 has a LCD display. This helped to cut costs for Sony, however, not for the customers. Customers were still spending $250 on the Vita, at least $15 on a memory card, which didn't hold a lot of games. I believe $15 got you the 4 gigabyte. Several dollars on games, depending on which ones you bought. And if they wanted a good sized memory card, they had to put out quite a bit of money. Unfortunately, due to those proprietary cards, this system nearly died. The PS Vita is still kept alive today in 2022, mostly thanks to the modding community. Jailbreaking your PS Vita is a very common thing to do. In fact, it was even a common thing to do with the 3DS. However, when it came to modding and jailbreaking, the PS Vita was pretty much the go-to because it had more powerful hardware. If only Sony didn't have those proprietary memory cards, who knows? Maybe the Vita could have taken Nintendo out. Personally, I've only had my PS Vita for a couple of months, and I really love it, even in 2022. But those memory cards really killed it. If they used normal micro SD cards, maybe the system would have been way more popular. Thank you for sticking around to the end of the video. If you liked what you heard and you want to hear more of it, please subscribe, hit that like button so that way I know you liked it. And thank you for sticking around, even through all my mistakes. But I'll see you later. Bye.